on to this now. A gallery of rogues. What a delicious description. And it's hardly the one the president had in mind when appointing members of his cabinet. Yet a number of them, ministers, are in the crosshairs of various law enforcement agencies, embroiled in allegations of wrongdoing. I told you yesterday, Cabinet's chief communicator, the minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo, smoke them out. Ntshavheni is yet another who's being accused of corruption. She joins her cabinet colleagues on a list of dishonor. Paul Mashatile, the Deputy President, Thembi Smelane, the Human Settlements Minister, Gwede Mandashe at Mineral Resources. This week, News24 dropped a bombshell. The minister who's in charge of the spies at the State Security Agency is implicated in a 2.5 million rand tender case. How did she pass the vetting process from her own spies? Adriaan Basson is the editor-in-chief of News24 and joins us now to unpack this story. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for your time.
Morning, Bongani. Always nice to talk to you.
This all stems from her tenure as municipal manager at Baphalabora local municipality. This is Khumbudzo Ntshavheni now, 15 years ago. How is she implicated?
Yes, indeed. It's a case that's been long in the making, and we were actually all shocked when we only recently discovered it. She was the municipal manager at Baphalabora in Limpopo before she rose to national politics. And that municipality appointed an audit firm to basically prepare the financial statements and to help the municipality to get their financial affairs in order. But highly irregular in the way this firm was appointed. This firm overcharged, they ultimately didn't do the work, were still paid. And when after Chabane had left the municipality, the firm took the municipality to court to claim outstanding fees. And we finally saw this judgment in the Limpopo High Court in 2020. That ordered the municipality to institute criminal proceedings or a criminal investigation about how this tender was awarded, how this firm was appointed, and paid for work not done under Chabane's leadership.
Repugnant and devastating was, in fact, how the judge described it when he looked at the decisions taken around this tender. And as the municipal manager, the buck would have stopped with her.
Absolutely. Municipal managers or the CEOs of municipalities, they carry the purses. So it was up to her. Firstly, obviously, there's a big issue and a big red flag if a municipality cannot look after its own financial affairs and account for its own financial expenditure and income. So the mere fact that they had to get a service provider in to help them fix the mess already says something. But then in appointing that firm, irregularly appointing that firm, not going out on tender, ignoring underbids, overpaying for work not done. I mean, that is just classic tender corruption that we've unfortunately become so accustomed to over the past 2 decades. And
you now say the Hawks have finalized an investigation?
According to our journalist Kaya Koko, who's been on this case, the Hawks have now finalized the probe. They've got all the evidence. It's in a docket. It's on the desk of the Director of Public Prosecutions in that province. So it's now a matter of time to see if she would indeed be charged.
Adriaan, I want you to listen to the ANC's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula essentially remarking on this matter and saying, at least in terms of what we have so far, this is merely a trial by media. Have a listen and then I'll get your response.
Khumbudzo must explain herself through the media that is guilty or not guilty. And that the Hawks, somebody from the Hawks, is communicating. These people are undermining the integrity of state institutions, the rule of law. The principles of our jurisprudence are being undermined, and we won't agree to that. If anyone has got a case against anyone, why do you link it to the media and want to try people through the media? It's exactly what happened with Thembi about VPS. No Thembi, big article is written about Thembi and all of that. At the end of the day, there's no case. And then quickly, through the media you come, why is it important that these people must not be removed? There's no law that functions like that. That is jungle law.
That is jungle law, says Fikile Mbalula. I want you to weigh in on that. I mean, does he not have a point? We have seen how effete the NPA has been in dealing with a number of these types of cases. And for example, take the Zizi Kodwa matter, where he was charged and resigned only for it to be withdrawn. Until these people are charged, is it fair to tarnish their name in this way?
Well, we're not in the business of tarnishing names. I mean, we do the work because we are the watchdogs, and we have to inform the public if there's any shred of information against ministers. I mean, there's many cases we've revealed over the past few years that haven't even made it to Hawke's face. So that's not our test for publication, whether there's going to be an arrest. For us, this is overwhelming in the public interest. The fact that not any minister, but the minister entrusted with oversight over South Africa's spies, intelligence agency, the secrets, the protector of the country's secrets and security, is implicated and has been for many years in a case of tender corruption. Bongani coming out of state capture, I think, it's unfortunate to hear the Secretary General of the ANC take that line and not be super vigilant and saying, look, we've seen these cases. We've been there. We've been to Bosasa. We've been to VBS. We've been to Denal and the Guptas. We know that, if there's smoke, there's often fire. So let's be vigilant. Let's, as the ANC ask Chabane about this case, let's the Integrity Commission interview her, etc. This is unfortunately a classic attempt to defend and to defer attention from the real issues at hand. Of course, what happens from here is out of the media's control. It's now up to the Hawks who think there's a solid case against her to convince the NPA to charge her. But for us, it was important to at least put the fact that this case exists and as you correctly remarked, those comments from the judge to at least get that into the public domain.
I mean, the Thembi Simelane case remains unanswered. It took the president, 180 days or thereabouts to act, and even then it was a mere reshuffle. And not for the first time, we now have a deputy president under scrutiny, certainly members of his family and people around him being investigated. What can the president do, though?
The president can do a lot. The president can fire ministers. He can suspend them. He can put them on extended leave. There's a number of tools available to him when someone of his executive is implicated in corruption or in any criminal activity. And in fact, he has done it before with Zweli Mkhize. You remember when Zweli Mkhize was implicated in the digital vibes matter, which the Daily Maverick exposed. Ramaphosa ultimately did ask Mkhize to step aside without him being criminally charged. He's still not criminally charged on that case. Now we can go into the arena of politics and say, well, was it more convenient for Ramaphosa to get rid of Mkhize because 4 months before the Nazareth conference, because Mkhize was going to oppose him for ANC presidency? Does Ramaphosa treat members of his cabinet differently in terms of where they are politically? We know Khumbudzo Ntshavheni is one of his absolute loyalists in cabinet, in the presidency, working very closely with him. So it must be harder for him then to get rid of her and someone like Thembi Simelane. So yes, he can do much more than shuffle people around into different portfolios.
I mean, 2027 is around the corner. No doubt the president will have that in the back of his mind, or perhaps front of his mind. The ANC, as we know, is in serious electoral decline. There's the emergence of Jacob Zuma's Mkhonto weSizwe party. That's a serious threat. These are some of the balls he no doubt has to juggle.
Absolutely, and the succession race in the ANC has begun. We know that someone like Fikile Mbalula, who you just quoted, has put up his own hand to be the next president of the ANC. Paul Mashatile is probably in front of that race at the moment still, despite all the allegations against him. So, yes, Ramaphosa has a lot of balls in the air that he has to juggle. But again, I would argue that, the ANC themselves, we've just come back from the January 8th statements by Ramaphosa, and the word renewal is always bandied around, but it's easy to say renewal, but it's much harder to actually implement renewal when you are faced with things like the charges against Ntshavheni? What does renewal look like in that context? I think that is the real test for him.
Mission impossible?
Well, I don't know. I argued in my column yesterday that I'm not sure the president has the backbone to fire these ministers. He will probably wait for them to be charged before removing them.
Here's the irony, Adriaan. President Ramaphosa might not, after all of this, he might not buck the trend and be the first ANC president to complete 2 full terms in the union buildings, regardless of what he does now. And so I suppose really the bigger question is, what can South Africans do to demand better leadership and governance?
Well, I think let me start at home. I think, support the media, support the independent media who reviews these cases, who still does investigative journalism. There's a few of us who still do that. Secondly, support organizations like CASAC and Freedom Under Law and Corruption Watch who take up these cases to court and actually take a public stance. And lastly, and I think this has happened over the past 9 years, is think about who you vote for. Let these things influence the way you vote when we go to the polls next year for the local government election. The ANC has definitely, undoubtedly been punished for their culture of impunity about corruption since 2016 local governments and in every election since. So the ANC is at a crossroads when they have to make hard decisions about how to deal with cases like this. Just ignoring it, deflecting, shuffling people is not going to help the ANC come back to 50%.
I dare say they haven't learned the lesson. Adriaan Basson is the editor-in-chief of News24. Appreciate your time this morning. As a South African voter, as a South African citizen, if you had a chance to address President Ramaphosa directly on these issues, what might you say to him? Let us know.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.